All right, good afternoon and roll call. Members of council are all present, counted for. And so I'll call the meeting to order. To members of council, any disclosure, opportunity, or interest on the agenda as presented to you this afternoon? I hear none, so we'll have that reflected in the minutes. So the introduction of our meeting today is the purpose is to hear comments from any affected landowners on the proposed drainage works as set out in the drainage report filed on March 17th, 2021 by Dillon Consultant Limited for the repair and improvement of the Cyr drain. So with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Paglia, is there anything else that certainly you want to bring forward to council at this stage?
Sure. Thank you. Through you, your worship. Good evening, everyone. It's been quite a few things to discuss here on the CYR drain or the Cyr drain. The contents of the PIC, at least the minutes, are in the attached report. Basically, the PIC was held March 5th, and there were two changes to the report, one being the watershed boundary. After discussions with some of the landowners on the overland flow and where it goes, that type of thing. And then a landowner had identified that his land was in fact grantable. So they go on a different portion of the assessment schedule. Notices for this meeting, the report was revised after the PIC, and we received a copy of the final report that's in front of you, and that was sent out to all of the affected landowners on May the 7th. On May the 19th, we were advised from a landowner that a severance had taken place, and it did not reflect in the current report that's in front of you. So it's a minor change in the assessment schedule whereby a portion of land owned by a previous owner is now owned by a new owner, and the previous owner is now not in the watershed. So the assessment schedule has to be adjusted to reflect that. And we've had a couple of calls from landowner, one being at 4:30 today, more related to the assessment portion. So that's generally not discussed at this consideration meeting, but I will follow up with them. I just never did because it usually takes more than the time. From the time I received that call till this meeting, I wouldn't have had time to respond correctly. So I'll follow up with that landowner and advise that they could choose to be a delegate if they are still unsatisfied with the cost, their portion of cost. And then another landowner identified a typo in the report, which will have to be corrected. So at the end of the day, based on that and other comments that we received today, our recommendation is that the report gets sent back to the engineer for those revisions, and we reschedule a reconsideration meeting of this report. We potentially could use the July 13th date that's been set aside for the quarter revision, provided that the clerk can schedule a quarter revision to follow in August. If not, we'll work that out with the clerk.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Paglia, for that information. Okay, so we do have one member as a delegation, Mr. John Lee, the resident, who, Sean, if you want to allow Mr. Lee on.
Yep. Hello. Hi.
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Okay, thank you so much. So I'm actually speaking on behalf of my parents. Their property is 13300 Desrow Drive, and what's the concern really for us is that they're actually they're looking to sell the building, and we do have an offer at the moment, which we're expected to hear if it's going to go through some mid-July, and if it does go through, the purchase of the property would probably take place in September. So really, the concern really is what is how is this the drain work? Will any work actually be done on the property itself, or how will it affect our property in any sense? Because if it does, we need to let the potential buyers know so that it's stipulated in the contract and the offer, right? So it's just a clarification that we're looking for.
Okay. Mr. Paglia?
Certainly, through you, your mayor. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for joining us today. So you have a requirement, it's a legal requirement to notify the new buyers that there is drainage work being done.
Right.
Currently, we have done a stretch of the drain from L'Esperance Road to County Road 19, and we are holding funds for that. We also have the cost of the engineer's report, so this report that's in front of council. Once we adopt this report for a variation of the assessment schedule in order to assess costs fairly to the community of landowners that use the drain, those costs, as well as the current maintenance costs that we've spent, will be assessed along with the upper portions of the CYR drain. We have some concern with heavy brush, and we potentially are looking at doing that this year. So there'll be additional costs there. So once all of the maintenance work is completed, then we will finalize up all the costs and then apply the ratios that are in the adopted report to recover all of those costs from the landowner. So the invoice per se, they won't see it for some time, likely winter or spring of next year once the grant applications are filed.
Okay.
But as far as the work, there has been work completed. There's the work that we're doing now to adopt the report. And then there's the future work of the upper portion of the CYR drain.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Paglia. So in terms of actually work on the property between now and September, is there any like contractors or construction or whatnot to actually be taking place on the property itself?
Through you, your worship, Mr. Lee, the work along the north side of County Road 22
Right.
has been completed. So that was completed in August of 2020. So for the time being, there'll be no more work. Correction there. We do have 3 culverts yet to flush. So there'll be a vac truck there momentarily for hours, but there's no actual digging taking place, no heavy machinery along 22. We've done that work.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. So realistically, if there's an invoice or whatnot, it won't be seen until closer to the end of the year, or if not next year.
Through your worship, yes, that's correct. And like I said, that invoice will reflect the entire maintenance cost spent on the project based on the assessment schedule that we adopt here.
Okay, and I did have a previous email that you did respond to me. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And that fee that you mentioned in the email is what you estimate would be the cost of the invoice, right?
Yes, through you, your worship. The estimated cost thus far are in the $70,000 range for the CYR drain at the end of everything. Now, those are just estimates. We will assess the final costs. Also in my email to you of May 31st, I believe that particular project at 13300 Desrow Drive is involved in multiple drainage projects. Fortunately, most of those are being initiated or have been initiated by the road authority, whether it be the county or whether it be the town Tecumseh, for work that they are doing, revising the drain and moving the drain off, covering the drain, that sort of thing, and they will pay for all of that work. So there's no particular invoice for that. But the new landowners and currently your parents would have appeal rights on the future maintenance ratios when those reports come through. So there's no financial obligation, but you still have appeal rights on the reports that are ongoing at the moment.
Okay, great. Okay, I think that was all my questions. Thank you so much for your time. So yeah, it's just pretty much what you mentioned in the email, really, in terms of cost for invoicing, which likely probably wouldn't even come to my parents before September. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you so much for answering the question.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Lee?
Nope, that's it. We just needed to know if we had to notify our potential buyers, and that's pretty much really the question. That's our concern that we had, and so far, that other than notifying them that of this, this event, other than that, there's nothing really we can do at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, communications. Well, I don't know. Before I move on, any questions, members of council to Mr. Paglia or? No, okay. Communications, a motion that the item as listed on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021 public council meeting agenda be received. Councilor Dowie, Councilor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And also the report, just to my understanding is basically it's to a request to consider the engineer's report, or it's for the reassessment, send it back. And so the report for the reassessment of the Cyr drain as prepared by Mark Hernandez, professional engineer of building consultant, that was dated March 17th. Drainage report be received and that consideration be given to the first and second readings of a provisional bylaw number 2021-41 to adopt the drainage report in accordance with section 42 of the Drainage Act. And further, that notice be given to all the affected landowners of the quarter revision to be held at a later date, obviously in accordance with section 46(1) of the Act, and that's subject to the adoption of the provisional bylaw. Council's wish, moved by Councilor Houston, and do I support? Councilor Aldenhoff. On no motion, any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And so with that, Mr. Paglia, as well, you I think you alluded to the fact that you'll be working with the clerk's office on that for the date.
Yes, through you, your mayor, I just received a good work, Laura. I just received a notice for the reconsideration on July 13th, so that's good news. So Mark Hernandez, as long as we can get that report out quick enough, revised and get it to landowners with enough notice for them to review it. Looks like we're seeing each other on July 13th for the reconsideration of this report, and then a later date for the quarter revision. So yeah, everything looks to be okay.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hernandez. And
Laura?
if there's no further questions or comments, then certainly adjournment's in order. Oh, sorry, Ms. Moy.
Sorry, Your Worship. So just to clarify, the bylaw will not be on this evening's agenda to adopt the drainage report. That bylaw will be deferred until after the public meeting in July. And this the report that was presented this evening will be returned to the drainage engineer for reconsider based on the comments this evening. And for the record, could we just have a motion that council is returning the drainage report to the engineer for reconsideration at the July 13th meeting?
Okay. Yep. Well, then I need to rescind the original one, right?
There was no specific date. So yes,
Nothing
we
there?
will be adopting the provisional bylaw, and yes,
Okay.
we will be holding the quarter revision. But if we could just have a specific motion to return the drainage engineer report.
Return the report. Okay, Councilor Altenhoff, Councilor Tonio, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. That should be it. German. Councilor Dowie, Councilor Houston, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried.